Hi, it's the No Vacancy News robot again. Did you know 79% of consumers will read between 6 and 12 reviews before making a purchase decision?
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey everybody, Glenn Hausman here with the No Vacancy Podcast. So excited to have you aboard with me for another exciting episode. Man, we are starting to get knee-deep into conference season. And next week we're going to be at the Lodging Conference, where I will be hosting a general session panel on Wednesday with all the top development folks in the hospitality industry. And then later on in the day, I'm going to be hosting a panel featuring CEOs and top influencers in the alternative accommodations world. And you know, I've been talking all about these accommodations that are changing and how that you guys could fit into it. And I think if you're at the Lodging Conference, coming to this panel is going to give you a lot of great insight into some of the changes that you're seeing that are outside the typical hospitality industry. So outside, away from that feedback loop that you're getting where you're constantly seeking information from folks that are doing exactly the same thing you're doing. Well, what we're going to do is giving you insight on doing new things that you could do based on what other folks are doing and a little bit of the hotel industry adjacent to what you're doing. And I think it's going to be a absolutely fabulous panel. And again, I want to thank you all for being here. You know, we got one life. I'm just blazing on over here trying to make things happen, and I'm really looking forward to having the No Vacancy studio also at the Lodging Conference next week. So if you're going to be there, check it out. Also, be sure to check out our other shows aside from our No Vacancy show. We got Checking In with Anthony and Glenn, which I do with the incredible Anthony Milkiri of Hotel Impossible on the Travel Channel. Also, check out our Hotel Design podcast, our Business of Hotels podcast, and of course, our Hotel Tech podcast. Man, are we doing a lot of great content these days. And if you're not following us on LinkedIn and Facebook, well, you should be. Like the No Vacancy page. Friend me on Facebook. Friend me on LinkedIn. And you'll get access to all of this great content that we are doing. All right. Ah, man, what a great day. I'm going to be on the road now for the next 5 weeks. Every single week, I'm going to be in a different city. So we're going to be having a lot of fun. I got Phoenix next week. And then I got Phoenix again, another trip to Phoenix. Then I'm going to Atlantic City. Then I'm going to Baltimore. Oh, my goodness. And then I'm going to Hilton Head Island. Why? Because I'm going to be hanging out with my good friends at Almo. Now, seriously, you know I've been talking about the great people over at Almo, and I want you to make Almo Hospitality your go-to partner to simplify FF&E deployments for the guest room and beyond. Speaking of beyond, they are doing incredible things over there. For example, they've got Samsung certified installation and reach content, right? So they are partnering with good folks like Stevens Digital, which has over 20-year experience, and you could count on them to work in unison with Almo Logistics and Operations to make sure that all of your installs go great. So it's not just about products, it's about services. It's about the extended warranties they offer. It's about free-to-guest TV, internet, and voice that you could get a lot cheaper than you're paying now. It's about financing and leasing for hospitality, FF&E, as well as great in-room entertainment, guest comfort and convenience, banquet and conference rooms, and indoor and outdoor furniture. So please, guys, do yourselves a favor. Don't do me a favor. Do yourself a favor. Save some money, save time, save hassle. Go to hospitality.almoproav, hospitality.almoproav.com. Okay. So today we're going to be talking to two fun interviews. One, we're going to be doing our annual look at airlines with our good friends over at J.D. Power. And then I'm going to be introducing you to another brand that you may not be familiar with in that alternative kind of universe, alternative accommodations. And I know that you're going to love the company Selina. It's interesting and you're going to learn a lot. All right, so stick around. Coming up next, we got J.D. Power. And then after the break, we're going to have the good folks over at Selina. Thanks for listening. And I'll be back next week. From Las Vegas. Nope, not from Las Vegas. From Phoenix at the Lodging Conference. Yeah, I miss Las Vegas. I got to get back there. It's been too long. All right. See you guys soon. See you next time. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast with me, Glenn Hausman. Today, we are going to talk about how folks are feeling about their airlines. Are they feeling satisfied about airlines? How is all of that going? And I got to tell you, I look at some of the press, and it always continues to be negative, negative, negative. But over the last few years in particular, I've noticed that my experiences while traveling in the airport, for the most part, have been pretty darn good. Sure, I had a 6-hour delay the last month. Sure, I had a 3-hour delay just the other day, but that doesn't mean that things aren't going well and the airlines aren't doing an amazing idea. So to talk a little bit today about where we are with customer satisfaction, J.D. Power has out its annual survey. So I have with us back again each and every year Mr. Michael Taylor, Senior Director, Travel and Hospitality Intelligence at J.D. Power, where he's responsible for providing industry thought leadership and business improvement recommendations. Let's find out how the airline industry is doing for sure based on what Mike has to say. Michael, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Glenn. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for being here today. Really looking forward to learning a little bit about some of the observations that you've made in the J.D. Power 2019 North America Airline Satisfaction Study. I think the best place to start, Michael, is give us an overall feeling about how you see the airline industry doing. Am I right? Are things getting better?
Actually, according to our data, the 16,000 people that we survey, things are indeed getting better. Overall, this is on our 1,000-point scale that J.D. Power uses for most of our studies. This is an all-time high for overall satisfaction for the entire industry.
That's incredible. Why do you feel that satisfaction now is at an all-time high? Could it be that people were just so beaten down years ago that their expectations are lower, or are the airlines actually delivering on the promises that they make?
Well, they're actually delivering on the promises. If you look at the operational statistics that the Department of Transportation, the Bureau of Transportation Statistics keeps, you'll see that all those operational metrics that get reported every month, the airlines have been doing a fantastic job on. Their on-time performance is near an all-time high as an industry. Their denied boarding, which is, I bought this ticket, but we're not letting you on this flight because we oversold it.
Right.
Denied boardings that are all-time low. Lost baggage is at a near all-time low. All the other things that you look at, safety concerns, number of complaints, those are all at all-time, almost near all-time lows. And on the converse side, the load factor, which is a percentage of seats that are filled on every flight, is near an all-time high.
Right.
But all those things combined, the airlines are actually doing a great job. And we've, kind of been in a 6-year run now of considerable improvement from the airlines because they've been on a 6-year profitability run.
Right.
And they're reinvesting in the entire system. They're bringing on new aircraft that are, better attuned, a little bit more comfortable, have quite a few more amenities involved with them. The in-flight entertainment systems are getting better, even though there's huge room for improvement on that particular factor. The capacity of the airlines has increased over the past few years. So all those things together are just simply a reflection of the higher satisfaction that J.D. Power is registering.
Fantastic. So let's get a little into some of those things that are doing better. But the one question I have for you, I know this is the 2019 survey, and it'll probably be reflected more in the 2020, but the 737 MAX being pulled out of the service, is that adversely hurting satisfaction for airlines such as Southwest Airlines, for example, which focuses a lot on that airplane? I know that because it's been taken out of service, they've been having to face some struggles that other airlines haven't necessarily had to face.
Well, for our particular survey period, the 737 MAX problem, being taken out of service, was only in the last month of our survey period. So it really didn't show up. And on top of that, we look at the aircraft types that people are flying. We collected all that data from the official airlines guide of the OAG. And, there weren't that many to begin with. As a percentage of everybody's fleets, it's not that big of a percentage. The two biggest percentage fleet that has the 737 MAX in it would be Air Canada and Southwest.
Great.
So, but what Southwest has done is they simply just chartered other jets that to fill those little gaps that the 737 MAX was flying, and the same thing with Air Canada.
Right.
And that's created some problems, however, for smaller airlines like I'm trying to think now, Swoop out of Canada, which is part of WestJet, had, they have 7 aircraft in their fleet, and one of them went down. And that's a major problem. When 1/7 of your capacity disappears. They had an oil leak that they had, took several weeks to fix. And they would normally go to the secondary market and get another 737-800 and put that into service. But there wasn't one available because Southwest and Air Canada have kind of scooped them all up. So it really hasn't made much of an impact on the bigger players. They have the leverage and the muscle to go in that secondary market and get capacity back. It's the smaller folks that are having problems like Swoop that it's really shown up as a negative impact on their operations.
Oy, poor folks over at Swoop. That's really rough for them. But of course, today we're talking about overall general satisfaction. It seems like a lot of the story this year is kind of similar to the story of last year that we've been seeing. And I got to tell you, Mike, Alaska coming in first and Delta coming in second, for example, seems to me to be a pretty familiar story.
Yeah, it is. Actually, this is I believe the 13th year in a row that Alaska has won the study. 13 years in a row. They take the J.D. Power stuff very seriously. And they're kind of sort of the model that we use of how to use the J.D. Power data. And they do an awfully good job of that. Now, Delta has also taken J.D. Power to heart as well. And I think they're equally as impressive with the size of the organization that Delta is, that they've been able to implement the changes they have and then maintain that, but they just keep finishing ever so close to Alaska in our rankings.
We're talking a difference of Alaska Airlines has achieved a score of 801, while Delta is only 13 points behind at 788, where American Airlines ranks third at 764. Please continue,
Right, exactly. Michael. Yeah. But American has done a great job recovering from their introduction of basic economy. And that's basically why they're very improved. When we look at these data and look at it historically, Delta instituted basic economy many years ago and did it without a blip. For the simple reason that they didn't charge you for that overhead bag. And, everybody who's charged for the overhead bag has really gotten dinged in the satisfaction ratings. What do you mean you're charging me for to put an overhead bag in a bin? You never did that before.
Right.
And so American and United still has that policy. American dropped it and said, okay, you can have the overhead bin for free. And that was probably the biggest irritant to people buying a basic economy ticket. And United still has that policy, but they are, of course, reviewing it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I really hope the airlines in mass don't add that to it. It's just not a customer friendly tactic. You're already getting the money on the bags under the plane. Come on, don't hit us up for the bags on top of the plane as well. So I will say I do believe Delta is doing a fantastic job overall. Although Delta, on a personal level, you could give me some more upgrades. But other than that, I got to tell you, professionally speaking, they are really knocking it out of the park. And I'm noticing that they're continuing to do small little incremental improvements that over the course of a few years is really starting to add up to some big changes. One thing I just noticed they started implementing, it seems to be going back to the 1970s, where if I get an upgrade, they're already asking me what I want as my meal in advance. I think that heightens customer service, makes me feel like I'm having a bit of control, while simultaneously it helps them better do planning and manage their expenses. And I think that's the kind of thing that airlines are doing more now that are creating more win-wins for both sides of the equation.
Yeah, and that's just an application of the available technology, that they're able to reach out to you and efficiently get your information that you want to see on that next flight.
Right.
United does the same thing, on kind of prepping you for how to use the IFE or the in-flight entertainment system. But yeah, everybody's getting a little bit better attuned to using technology.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk to me a little bit about how technology is really starting to pay off, because I know that's one of the key findings from the 2019 survey, that they really seem to be making strong strides now when it comes to tech investments such as reservation and check-in systems.
Right, that's exactly right. So the highest rated portions of the experience are that reservation system, the check-in system, and believe it or not, the flight crew. They're all in the mid 800s for the industry out of that 1,000-point scale, significantly ahead of the boarding, deplaning, and baggage processes, the aircraft. But the Achilles heel here is that the other part of the technology coin, the other side of the technology coin, in-flight entertainment, still has a long, long way to go That's actually the lowest rated part of the experience.
Wow.
Even rated lower than actually paying for the ticket.
So that seems weird because you put these things in
the data. It does seem weird.
Yeah, because the whole idea is if you make them, you're going to make them happy with this. So where are they stumbling that it seems to be a blockade for them as opposed to boosting their overall score?
Yeah. Over the last couple of years, we've noticed that people's expectations of being connected and also streaming their entertainment and whatever they want to do, their expectations have grown exponentially, or significantly grown over the last 3 to 4 years.
Right.
And it's just very difficult for airlines to actually keep up with that technology. Most of the aircraft, large aircraft or large airlines in North America are operating about 3 different generations of in-flight entertainment or in-flight streaming.
All right, makes sense.
And so it can vary from aircraft to aircraft.
Yeah.
And what they call high-speed Wi-Fi isn't what you and I have come to understand as high-speed Wi-Fi.
Right.
And so what happens is people get frustrated. I was sharing with just one of our airline clients the other day that I was on one of their flights a few months ago, and I have a Samsung S8. It's a couple years old. It's nothing. It's not bad. It's not great, I don't think, these days versus maybe the S10 or the new iPhone 10.
Well, I have the S10, so obviously I'm a lot cooler than you are right now.
Yeah, so. You probably are. And so both my kids have the i10, the iPhone 10, and they're much cooler than I am.
Yeah, right. Well, that's a given for all of us.
Yeah, I was telling them that I was on your aircraft and I was streaming, on my little personal device, my Samsung S8, The Crimes of Grindelwald, which is one of the Harry Potter follow-on movies. And I said, the video was great, and while it was working, but occasionally the movie would skip, and at the end I had no idea who did what and why this was happening.
Don't worry,
I rewinding the stream, and it still skipped in the same spots, and I missed key parts of dialogue, which was more frustrating than actually watching the show.
Well, Michael, the good news is the movie was just that bad. You wouldn't have been any clearer anyway had you heard all of it. I was very disappointed in that particular film. My kids are big Harry Potter fans over here. But I will tell you that I think that makes sense. In terms of my relationship with Delta and their internet service, I think they've done a terrific job of having seatback entertainment and then using the internal Wi-Fi to deliver stuff to your personal devices. They don't want you to stream off of Netflix and any outside sources because they don't have the technology right now in place, to do that. So I'm wondering if customers have an erroneous set of expectations on what's really technologically possible to deliver at this time, and that might be perhaps adversely affecting how people respond.
That's exactly it. If you think about what it takes to rewire an aircraft, you have to take it out of service. Now you're not making any money. That plane isn't flying on, the thousands of people or 1,000 people or so that it does in a day. So that's lost revenue for the airlines. And what's happened is, and I may have mentioned this last year as well, that the recent experience of the airlines, when they put these new systems in that are supposed to be the latest, greatest slam bam thing, they very quickly become the iPhone 4. Right. Immediately out of date. But I think we've gotten to the point, and I'm no tech guy, as you can understand, as you can tell by this
S8,
yeah. But the latest systems that they can get from Panasonic is one of the ones that I happen to know about. It seemingly has enough capacity that we're gonna, not gonna experience these problems. The problem is making an investment in it. And actually putting those systems in an aircraft. And there are certain aircraft, the smaller ones especially, that you can't. They don't have the physical room in which to put it.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
No, I believe it. I mean, they didn't design these things to have a lot of extra room, which would cause extra weight, which would cost it more to fly. So it makes sense to me.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the one reason why the in-flight services, as we call it, which is half of it being the in-flight entertainment, is rated lower than actually paying for the ticket itself.
Right.
The other part of the in-flight services is the food and beverage service, which you've mentioned before.
Yeah, that's where I was going to get at next. I'm happy with in the first class cabin in particular. I've seen Delta, which is my flyer that I typically use, has really upped their game. But I'm also noticing that stuff that's not served in the upgraded cabins and the regular main cabins, the food there seems to be getting better too. but I'm not necessarily sure customers are appreciating some of the changes that are in place currently.
Right. It just takes a little while for everybody to get used to what's available because things are, it's still very much in a state of flux. But what the airlines have learned and are implementing is the same thing that's been happening the last 20 years in the airport side of things is that if you can create a unique experience or you have a unique food offering, that people are very happy with it and they're willing to part with money for it. And our data shows that, if you were to get a meal that was free and it would exceed your expectations, you had a certain level of satisfaction. And if you had a meal that you paid for that exceeded your expectations, that satisfaction level is even higher. So meaning if I paid for it and I exceeded my expectations, I'm happier, which is a win-win situation. Now you got a happy passenger and the airline's making money. And that's what they need to do. But they can't just throw, any kind of food or snack at people anymore. Right. United now has, offering their Stroop waffle, which is a great, snack name to actually say, the Stroop waffle.
Yes, and now also available at McDonald's all summer long.
I'm not a McDonald's fan. I didn't know that. So
I'm not a McDonald's fan either. But I love reading about franchise businesses, and they brought over this international collection of stuff. And the Stroop waffle from the Netherlands was their dessert item.
Yeah. So we see that when people do things like that Stroop waffle, which is not something you find in your average Stop and Shop, or Big Bear or Vons. It's sort of an exotic thing, and it's actually quite tasty. And that makes a big impact on folks when they can get something that they think is unique in flight. So the ability and Alaska Airlines, as I mentioned at the top of this show, does a great job, looking at the J.D. Power data and interpreting it, and they have, Tillamook cheese plates and things like that, which communicate, Tillamook being from the Northwest, and then it's actually a high quality cheese, and people are paying quite a pretty penny for that cheese plate, but it's actually quite good, and people are very satisfied when they do pay for it.
Agreed, but coming as a guy who started enjoying the cheese plate when they first started putting it out, it's become half the size at the same cost, and it's getting frustrating.
Well, that's an operational thing. They do try and. I think we've talked about this before, but there are a couple different strategies for the airline industry, several different really. Right. One of them is making the pizza very cheap, but you get to a point where the pizza becomes too cheap. Right. And so, believe me, the data, it'll show up in the data when that cheese plate gets too small for the price they're charging. That'll definitely show up.
Yeah. Yeah, and it reminds me of the story. Was it American Airlines that removed the olive from the salad or something like that, and they saved hundreds of thousands of dollars by just taking out one olive? And I think since that time, many years ago, that kind of thought process has gone into the airlines. But I do sense that the airlines have realized that they need to invest more money in the right places in order to really raise those customer service scores and make people happy. They're getting they're getting a better understanding of where they could cut back on stuff that's not as important, and also what people are going to tolerate. And I think they've also done a great job at getting people accustomed to paying all these extra fees for better seats and for underneath the plane baggage. Does that make sense to you? Are people getting more comfortable with that stuff?
Yeah, there is still a gap in satisfaction when people have to pay for any service. Right. But the disaggregated services, as I refer to it, is a big financial draw for the airlines. The ancillary services among the airlines as an industry now, the baggage fees are $4.1 billion with a B dollars per year or so. It's probably going to be higher this year. Right. $4.1 billion revenue. And that's a lot of revenue right there. So what they're doing is they still are. There's less animus towards charging for that bag fee, but there still is. There's still negativity to it. Why am I? And this is one of the reasons why Southwest wins our low price category, or at least ties JetBlue for the low price category, is bags fly free. And they make a big point of that. And they also, as we're talking about pricing, one of the big things that, if you looked at it on an equal basis, Southwest prices versus, say, United or American, there really isn't that much difference. Southwest still maintains that low-cost airline halo because they don't charge for the bags and they don't charge you a change fee. And that just those policies right there give an aura that, Southwest isn't out to nickel and dime you,
right?
As some of the airlines might be,
and that's
so one of the reasons why they've tied for the top spot this year, but they've had that top spot now for 3 years at J.D. Power.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. People are willing to pay a premium for certain things like a higher quality food that you might get on the plane, but they don't like it when they feel they're being taken advantage of with stuff like fee changes. I can't stand it when they're trying to nickel and dime me with those fee changes. Michael, before we wrap up, I know that you also work with airports around the world, and as a New York guy, I'm curious as to what you think about what's going on at JFK and LaGuardia as these airports are in the middle of or about to begin massive transformations to actually try to become world-class facilities.
Yeah, whoops, sorry for my phone ringing there.
Yep.
That's that famous Samsung S8 right there, sorry. There's a lot of stuff. As I probably mentioned last year on your podcast, 9/11, 2001 threw a monkey wrench into many airports' plans, including especially the New York airports.
Right.
The improvements that they had on order were just halted or dismissed simply because they needed to focus on security and safety procedures that were changes that were going to happen on the airport. Mm-hmm. But now we're in this happy confluence. Sorry, somebody really wants to talk to me.
Yeah, it looks that way.
Sorry about that. I should put it on mute. There we go.
Yep.
Should have done that beforehand.
That's all right.
There has to be a happy confluence. The economy has to be good, and the airlines have to be making money for airport improvements to happen, because the airlines can put the brakes on any spending on any airport that they fly into. So we're currently in a nice sweet spot where the airlines have been making money for about 7 years in a row now. The economy, GDP is growing. And that allows the city governments, state governments, county governments to say, yes, let's go ahead and make these improvements to the airport that are really needed. They're also way beyond their capacity. Most of them are beyond the capacity they were actually built for. And so we are seeing these massive investments in airports. I mean, O'Hare is going to spend $4.5 billion improving their airport space, which badly needs it, as you know. Mm-hmm. It looks like Mardi Gras when you're going down the main causeway,
but not nearly as much fun.
Yeah, not nearly as much fun. I mean, and there's portions of the current LaGuardia building, the central, what I still refer to as the Central Terminal building, that are only 7 feet wide, quite literally only 7 feet wide. And then you're having quite literally millions of people go through that 7 foot wide space.
It's craziness.
And that just creates a feeling of crowding and overcrowding very quickly. But the improvements to LaGuardia is going to be dramatic. Obviously, the biggest thing that's going to happen there is going to be somewhat invisible to most passengers, in that the new building is going to allow aircraft to go completely around in a circle.
So cool.
And LaGuardia, which they hadn't before. Remember, you had to be towed out of gates, towed into gates. Well, that's not going to happen anymore.
Oh, and then let me put this out there for listeners. It's going to be really cool because when you're going from the new main terminal where you check in and stuff, which is now open, then you go over these sky bridges over the runway to where the gates are, so the planes can actually pass underneath where you go. How cool is that?
That is cool. And so there's going to be a massive change to LaGuardia probably 2 years from now when that new main building opens and then they tear down the old buildings.
I know. I can't wait until that happens. They are just starting to build the new Delta side right now. So I'm still a little bit farther away from the others, although it's been an amazing feat to watch them plop a brand new airport right down on top of an old airport and make it keep functioning. Phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, that's tough to do.
Yeah.
It's not actually pleasant for the passenger, but in the short term, but they actually still do function. They still fly planes out
of there. It's absolutely horrible. And the good thing about being stuck in traffic going in and out of the airport is I get to see what the state of the construction is, because I'm a real geek when it comes to that kind of stuff. And the Sconsa people are doing terrific. What about go on, sorry.
Sorry, JFK.
That's exactly what I was going to say. What about JFK? What do we have planned there? Because I know they're going to revamp everything.
They're going to connect some of the buildings, which is going to be quite a logistical issue because those buildings are so far apart. But like Terminal 7 is going to be completely, I believe the entire structure is going to come down. That's currently where Alaska and British Airways is.
And that building in particular is it's very, very old, probably dates back to the 1960s, and it doesn't have any personality, very unlike what the recently saved Aerosarin in TWA terminal was, which was turned into the lobby of a hotel.
Right. And then over at Newark, the Munich airport now is going to manage Terminal A. So they're going to bring their management practices to Terminal A, which is something, that the Schiphol Airport used to manage Terminal 4 years ago.
Really?
And they're the ones that created actually the Terminal 4 design that you see today.
Oh, huh.
So that's something that's in the works as well with the Port Authority.
Fascinating. All right, so New York is in the process of getting all these new airports, and I see a lot of great airport work being done all around the country. Really, definitely symbolic of where we are today. Michael, before we wrap up this conversation, is there anything else information-wise that you want to get out there? And then I'd love to learn about how people can find you, how people can find J.D. Power and engage in your stuff.
Oh, well, you can go to jdpower.com/business and look for travel. The other major study that I do is the rental car study. And really the impact of Uber and Lyft has made a big difference in that industry. And also Uber and Lyft are making a huge impact on parking lots at airports, which have been a major source of revenue for airports, and they're having a big impact. Like, for example, Denver Airport had plans to create new parking structures, which they've now scrapped because of the economic changes that Uber and Lyft have created to parking at the airport.
Wow. That's absolutely fascinating. Well, Michael, whenever you get the next report out on that, I'd love to hear more. I'd love to have you back on the show because sounds really fascinating to me. And now my phone is ringing. It's good.
We're just in demand.
It's good to know that that's my mom calling. She loves me, so that's good to know. Or maybe she's calling to tell me how much she hates me. Who knows? We'll find out when I pick up the phone. So, Michael, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
You're quite welcome, Glenn.
And I want to thank all of you guys for continuing to listen to our show, and we'll be right back after this message. Hey everybody, Glenn here. So listen to this. According to a recent survey, Red Roof's franchisee satisfaction is at an incredibly impressive 90%. And, I think the number one reason why is because Red Roof actually listens to franchisees. That is so important. They have a franchise advisory council, and their members serve as a liaison between franchisees in their area and the Red Roof franchising executive team. Amit Patel, a council member who owns a property in Irondale, Alabama, said, unlike other brands, the advisory council isn't just a formality. We have a strong voice and are truly involved in all the decisions. Member Sheetal Patel of Kingman, Arizona, explained that the council helps because everyone keeps on the same page. And that's really important. Now, Mr. Patel, he converted to Red Roof because he knew the consistent quality would help upgrade his customer base, and he's already seeing a difference. And you can too. Now, quoting Maya Ben Patel from Saraland, Alabama, he's got multiple brands in her portfolio, and she says other franchisors can't hold a candle to Red Roof when it comes to responsiveness. I'm on a first-name basis with senior management. All of this, to me, proves genuine relationships, real results. It's far more than a slogan. To learn all of the advantages of partnering with Red Roof, visit redrooffranchising.com. That's redrooffranchising.com, or call 888-473-8861. Tell them Glenn sent you. Hey everybody, welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast with me, Glenn Hausman. I'm excited to be here today because I get to tell you guys all about a hotel company that you may not have heard about. And I love sharing all the news stories of great companies that are trying to break out all across the world, and in particular here in the United States. So we're going to be talking about the brand Selina, and I'm with the head of global market research for the Selina team, Ravi Govada. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Glenn. How are you?
Good. Did I get the name pronounced right?
Yes.
I should have asked you ahead of time how to pronounce it, because I hate putting myself out there and not pronouncing someone's name right.
No, it's actually perfect.
Thank God. Yes, and everyone listening, I do have that fragile of an ego that I had to make sure that I was saying it right. So, Ravi, maybe let's orient everybody before we get into all the nitty-gritty stuff. Tell me a little bit about how Selina is different. What makes it different from a traditional hotel? What makes it different from what we think of as a traditional hostel? What makes it different from everything that we're used to in the traditional hospitality universe?
Great. So if you think about it a little bit more high level,
right.
just thinking about target audience and what we're really thinking about, we've designed our entire product offering, our properties, and everything that we build in our ecosystem for the nomadic traveler.
Right.
The modern traveler who might be a little bit less location dependent. They might not even be consistently renting an apartment or living in the same place.
Right.
And we're looking for that. We're understanding the pace of travel is a lot different now.
Right.
And also budgets are different. People are willing to spend maybe $20 a night, certain part of their vacation. Other days they want to spend $150 a night.
Right.
There's so many different need states out there that people have in terms of how they consume accommodation, F&B, music, how they want to work, how they want to collaborate. And we really took that to heart in terms of providing a broad scope.
Oh, right. And it's sitting here in your offices in downtown Manhattan, right off Canal Street by the tunnel. You've got one of these modern offices. Everyone's kind of in it together. It feels like a great teamwork kind of environment here. And that, to me, is very symbolic of how folks in their 20s and 30s seem to want to work and live today. And it sounds to me that that's kind of the trend that you're focused on.
Yeah, exactly. We're really focused more on the 30-year-old. If you think about like average age, of course, we have people in the 20s.
I remember 30.
I'm still in there, so
lucky you.
And but yeah, so we're looking for people. I've stayed at a few Selinas in Latin America as well as in Europe and Portugal, and there's people who are in their 20s. You're sort of in spring break, backpacking. You have people in their 30s, work. Maybe entrepreneurs, people in between jobs, people on vacation. And then we also have people who are in their, 40s, 50s, 60s, couples, families. So it really brings a lot of good energy of like multi, disciplines, multi, ethnicities, all walks of life in one place.
I love that. I love the whole idea of that global melting pot being in one location. And when we first started talking just a few minutes ago, the thing that struck me most is that digital nomad point of view that you were putting out there. This is an issue that I don't think people are talking about enough yet. And for folks listening, you may not be experiencing this yet, because I still think we're at the beginning of this wave that's going to be coming, right? And the whole idea is when I was in my 20s, I was living up on the Upper East Side here in New York. And back in 1995, 96, I was spending $1,200 a month on an apartment, right? I could have taken that money and traveled all over the world and stayed in different places and been productive with work, had the internet been the way it was, the way it was then as it is now, right? So I could totally understand why people don't want to be constrained with the way that we've been told we have to live in the 20th century, right?
Exactly. And there's a lot more, just taking it even a step further, there's a lot of more people earning money and wanting to spend it immediately.
Right.
Rather than save up, and then when you're like down the road, have an amazing vacation.
Right. That's an interesting point, too, because I'm from the generation of delayed gratification. And sure, that's good, but at the other token, why? Why should I put off experiences to later in life?
So, and I think it really helps shape people personally.
Right.
So you're able to experience new cultures, and more than anything, this nomadic lifestyle, you're living, working, and playing in a new area.
Right.
And maybe within a year, you might be going to 4 or 5 different countries, and within those countries, several different locations.
Right.
So you're experiencing new ways of traveling. You might pick up surfing. You might learn a new job industry that you start working in, learn how to code or something along those lines.
Right.
All these things play into it. And, the good thing about digital nomads is they know what they're doing. They're going to different places and experiencing. There's also an element of loneliness that can be felt by these people, and there's a huge need for them to connect, and not just connect digitally on Facebook, LinkedIn, or anything like that.
That's good, but it's empty at the same time.
Exactly.
It doesn't nurture the soul.
Exactly. And, we did a lot of soul searching as a company.
Right.
Last year, one of our corporate offsites, we were really trying to understand what is our mission. Like, we're building this network, and we're looking for all these different accommodating factors for a, nomadic traveler. And we realized our core mission is to create, meaningful and authentic connections, real life connections, no matter what it is, whether it's co-working, whether it's where you're staying, having a coffee in the morning, any of those aspects that we do, or even hosting a DJ or a party, it's all about that.
Yeah, that really is hitting every single major trend that I'm seeing right now. These are the trends that the major hotel companies are trying to figure out right now, but you're a nimble company, you can really embrace it right away. Now, the company's only about 5 years old, right?
Yeah, company's 5 years old. just to give a little bit of backstory on the company, founded by two founders, Rafi Museri, Daniel Rudasevsky, and we started in Panama. They actually met. They were friends before when they used to live in Israel. They met each other in Costa Rica. They started talking about this idea of traveling. They used to stay a lot in hostels at that point in their life, and they felt like they weren't really getting what they wanted. Hostels, you meet people in hostels. That's the great thing about it.
Right.
Whereas if you stay in a hotel, you have the nice accommodation, you have a great sleeping, shower experience, whatever, but they ended up finding themselves staying in certain places and then going somewhere else to hang out. So their experience wasn't centralized the way that they thought. And that really started this concept. So the concept started in a small fishing village in Panama called Pedasi.
Wow.
Really nothing going on there. They started by just getting a guest house, working on that, created a little coffee shop, and really started building both the community together and really giving a place where people can live, work, and play.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about that sense of community because it is so important. But what does that really mean? Because even when I'm doing keynote speeches on stage talking to hotel companies, I talk about the importance of creating instant communities, right? But I don't think people really understand what that means.
Yeah, it's a challenging thing to get right, and we know that, and we're growing at such a scale that we have to put even more emphasis on getting it right. For us, it's really about making sure that the places that we build, the spaces that we design, are as engaging for the locals who live there, as well as tourists that want to come stay there. If we build a hotel and we don't have locals in the same market, whether it's New York or in Panama or wherever, coming and consuming our products, our content, like the music performances we put on, the concerts that we put on, talks that we have, or even our co-working space, then we failed as a company. We really want to have them first, catering towards the local audience. We feel if they come, then the tourists will come as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. So give me an example of a day in the life of an experience at any of the Selinas that you have around the world. And you guys are, for a company that I'm not so familiar with, it's amazing to me that you're in so many countries: Argentina, Bolivia, Greece, Guatemala, Mexico, Panama, as we talked about, Portugal, and on and on and on. Greece, wow.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Actually, I started last March 2018. We had about 23 properties open, and we have a little over 50 now opened, and a lot more in development, in pre-opening and various stages of that.
Wow. All right. So what is the guest experience like on an average day?
So an average day, you come in, you have a hotel room that you're in. You could be in a shared room, so you could be in a bunk bed with 4 to 6 or 8 other people. You could be in a private room with yourself or anyone else you're staying with. And then you come out, and there'll be a cafe, a place to have breakfast. There'll be coffee, standard breakfast menu that you would have. Our menu generally is a bit of local and sort of our own sort of style of menu. So you do that, you have coffee. A lot of times people are going to bring their laptops out and be working and eating at the same time. A lot of that is going on at that point in time. And then afterwards, in the morning, we have yoga classes, 8 a.m. yoga classes. We have run clubs, so people will usually get a bite to eat, finish a little work, catch up on some emails, then go out, maybe hit the pool, go join a yoga class. We have some meditation, mindfulness type of classes as well, or join a run club or anything else. That usually takes up that. Depending on the location, we also have a lot of surf clubs, so anywhere that we're on the coast, we also have that as well. That could be any point in the day, depending on the waves and, the tide of that specific location. And then we have lunch and things of that nature. We also have tours and transportation that is part of our packaging. So you might go zip lining, after you finish your yoga and have lunch, you go zip lining, go to a hot spring, go check out some, wilderness or jungle type of excursion. That would be part of it. And then you probably will come back and then finish some more work. We have co-working spaces. Maybe you have some actual meetings or conference calls you want to do. And then by evening time, you're kicking back. There's pool tables. People are, hanging out, drinking some beer or whatever. And likely we'll have a live music performance, either a DJ set or an actual band that's there.
Wow, where were you in the mid-1990s, man? I'm like, really, I think that's pretty cool, because the whole idea of it's not just you focusing what's going on within the borders of the physical structure.
Exactly.
You're taking that community and building a community by taking them in to the communities in which you're located.
Exactly. The whole point is that, there's arts and crafts, even our own retail shops that we have in our hotels. I think 30% of them are coming from locally produced goods, and we have a rotation of it. So we're really trying to get not only our guests to understand like the locally things that are made. For example, in Portugal, we have a lot of cork things that are locally made in Lisbon and Porto.
Right. Wow. That's pretty cool. So what's the average size of one of these properties?
It's a good question. We have various locations.
Right.
I'll start talking about location types. We strongly believe as a brand we can be in any location.
Right.
We have properties in the middle of the Amazon jungle.
Wow.
We have places that are remote beaches that you've probably never heard of, but have the most amazing waves and, aren't really that many accommodation offerings. And then we also have big cities. We're in Mexico City. We've signed some properties in New York and Manhattan that are going to be opening later this year and early next year. We've opened in Lisbon. We're looking, for properties in other major metropolitan cities like this. So in terms of the key count, if you want to think about it from that perspective, a major city, anywhere from like 70 to 120, 150 keys, and then going down all the way to remote would be like 30 to 60
Yeah,
keys.
it really just makes sense on whatever the particular needs of that particular environment is.
Exactly.
Right. So it's great that you don't have to constrain yourself to a particular prototype size, because a lot of the brands, it's like if you get below a certain threshold or
Correct.
above a certain threshold, it's just not going to work.
You need a minimum 100 keys or whatever the development guidelines say.
Right. Okay. So, I got involved in this conversation with you with the idea that it's not really a traditional hostel. It sounds to me, now that we're having the conversation, the only overlap you have with a hostel is that you might have some rooms that are shared, but that seems to be pretty on trend with where we're going anyway.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of new brands that a lot of the big groups out there are starting to play with to hit this sort of middle market that really isn't addressed by your typical economy scale, upscale, luxury scale. There's a big segment missing. A lot of brands are playing with the idea of shared accommodation and how they can fulfill it in especially the U.S. market, where hostels have a little bit more of a stigma than you do in like Europe or Latin America.
Well, totally. I remember back when I was getting ready to graduate college and we were thinking about that trip to Europe and staying in hostels and stuff like that. It never would have occurred to me to do something
totally
like
normal.
that here. Yeah.
It's totally normal. You go backpacking through Europe, it's a thing you do, and you're expecting to stay in a hostel.
Right.
Whereas in the U.S., it's almost like, oh, you'd rather do Airbnb or maybe stay in like a economy hotel down the road.
Right.
When you could still have that amazing, enriched cultural experience that places like hostels or these new brands offer, where you really have the idea of experience. And I think you can even see larger companies are really thinking about how experience plays into the hospitality overall concept, and it's starting to become a bigger emphasis.
Well, that E word, I mean, I use everywhere. In fact, when I host panels, which I do frequently at major industry events, I want to turn it into a drinking game. Anytime someone says experience, take a shot, but nobody would be able to walk out of that. So everyone talks about experience, but I'm not necessarily sure people really understand the true meaning of what an experience is. And to be fair, that shifts depending on where you are and what you're trying to accomplish. But how do you guys feel that you're really maximizing the opportunity to create a base from which people can have those individualized experiences they want?
I think base is the right way. Ultimately, we have venues. We have spaces that we've designed carefully and we've put together, and we want to make sure that you go in there and you have the best experience possible. And that changes by location. So some of our locations, we have one in Nosara in Costa Rica that just opened. It's going to be more wellness oriented. It's going to be a lot more for yoga retreats, people going there for a certain type of feel, whereas we have others in, Panama or other general areas that are a little bit more, let's say, party-oriented and things of that nature. So we really focus on catering to what's around there, what locals, again, will consume. So the type of music, the type of events, all of this is sort of thinking about that. So when you're going to an event in one of our hotels, you're not just seeing the guests that you probably saw the entire time you were there. You're also seeing people that are coming in, from Ubers or taxis or parking nearby and coming to our events locally.
I love that, especially the curating of the music part of it, because I feel like a lot of hotels have two types of music. Most hotels, it's just happening in the background, and other hotels, if they're in a resort, it's like you have to play Bob Marley, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So we're looking for local acts. We're looking for We're looking for local DJs. We're also looking for, of course, there's going to be international or probably a little bit more prominent figures as well, and we have a good mix of that. We also have live music on Friday nights in some of our locations as an example, and that's really taking in community acts. So people who are coming, who are down the road performing. We also are, toying with the idea of music studios in some of our properties.
Cool.
And giving that as sort of a give back to some of the community members that can come use it. And then like real, more professional artists can come and like rent the space out, to do like their music residency or record their album.
Well, let's do that, and then we can do another podcast from, from the woods of the Amazon or something like that. Yeah.
We're working on a property in Woodstock right now.
Oh, cool.
Huge music background, of course, in terms of the history and tradition there, and we're thinking about exactly this in terms of our development and our concept.
Excellent. So, how does all of this work? Who's the actual ownership of these properties? Where's the money come from? Mm-hmm. Is it a franchise thing? What's the structure here?
Great. So we're a brand, obviously. Outside of that, we operate and lease hotels.
Okay.
So we engage in 20-year leases, usually with an option to extend to 10 plus or 20 plus on top of that. So we have, really skin in the game. We're providing owners with guaranteed yield through rent. And we're operating the properties. So we really have a bottom line that we're concerned about.
So you're looking more at apartment buildings? Or
actually,
does it matter? I guess it doesn't if you have something in the Amazon.
It really doesn't matter. We've leased dirt. We've leased warehouses. We've leased office buildings, apartment buildings, what have you. So we're not really scared of anything from that perspective. However, we do have a strong investment thesis.
Right.
And that really is, there's a lot of hotels out there. Some of them could be franchised. Some of them could be mom and pops, independently run, that are not really managed or maximizing the revenue that they want. And the owner in the end is actually getting squeezed and hurt as a result.
Of course. I'm seeing that day to day now, man.
And our pitch is like, look, we're going to come in, we're going to make your property the coolest place on the block, and we're going to give you a guaranteed yield through rent. You're not going to have to worry about anything. You can wash your hands clean. You can go away, retire somewhere else, and we're going to be paying you that guaranteed yield month over month.
That's great, because there are a lot of other concepts that are coming in that are trying to take over or take a portion of the rooms or whatever, and the hospitality community is in general starting to feel that that's lowering the rates in places. Now, this is a model where rate becomes irrelevant to the owner of the property.
Yeah, rate doesn't matter. They don't need to care about it. All they need to care about is the bottom line that they're getting from rent. And this really helps us in terms of our conversion. And we spoke earlier about the speed in which we've been opening assets. A lot of that is based on us going and finding existing hotels, going in, doing really, really light conversion, and essentially opening from the time we start, close on the property to when we open is anywhere from 3 to 6 months.
Woo!
Yeah,
that's unbelievable. I can't believe you guys can act that fast.
It takes a lot of orchestration. From hiring, we have to go in and quickly land in and do Selina's Got Talent type of thing, and hire as many people as possible. In terms of designing the property, we're engaging local graffiti artists, local artists to come and do murals on our property. So we try to figure out really creative and resourceful ways to really get things done.
All right. So if you're doing Selina's Got Talent and you hire a ventriloquist, you have to pay the dummy as well.
Yeah, it's a country by country, but we'll see.
All right. I like that answer. What's going on with you guys here in the United States?
So U.S., we really believe in the U.S. I think it's a completely untapped market, and you can see it from all these new brands that are trying things here and there to really address it. You also have some European hostel brands that are coming in here. We really have strong ambitions in the Northeast of the U.S. in sort of big cities, Philly, New York, Boston, D.C. But we're also looking, mentioned Woodstock. We're also looking for these high experience, remote-oriented locations. They could be old lodges, old summer camps that we take over and
old summer
re-energize.
Just don't open one by Camp Crystal Lake. That would be a bad choice.
I'm going to take a note.
Yeah, a little Friday the 13th humor for those folks out there. All right, so. What about I could totally see you doing stuff in the outskirts of national parks and all that kind of thing.
Totally.
Too.
So in terms of location types, we have all of the big cities. We have these smaller tourist destinations. We're looking in the Southeast as well. I think there's so many good synergies for our brand in the Southeast.
Right.
It's not exactly, similar in the sense of Latin flavor, but I think the vibe you get there, the type of energy you have in these destinations really speak to us.
Right.
And going to the national parks thing, we definitely want to be around this area as well. We have several national parks around the
How has your company been affected by the rise of Airbnb? And I don't mean it from the point of view of you having to change what you're doing. I'm thinking of it's probably created more of an opportunity for people to want to learn about companies like Selina.
Totally. You can even see Airbnb, they're figuring out ways to enrich the experience that they offer their guests. And, we actually see it as an opportunity for us. Of course, when we're looking at any market, we're looking at the hotel landscape. We're also looking at the short-term rental market. I think we offer a lot more for the same type of dollars you might spend. Maybe rather than getting a one-bedroom apartment, you're still getting a hotel room, but you're getting a place that is lively, inspiring from a design standpoint, and a place where you can feel at home in various other ways.
Yeah, and another thing that I like that you guys are doing is you can do a shared accommodation experience. My guess is you spend less money for that. Or if you want to have that sense of privacy, you could get something on your own as well.
Yeah, we have anything from shared. You can be spending, $15 to $20 a night, depending on the location, all the way up to $100 a night to $200 a night for like a deluxe suite. Everything. Yeah,
that's freaking awesome. I just say, again, I think about when I was young and free and all of that kind of stuff. And if I had four buddies or that I was going away with, and we would all squeeze into a hotel room, and it would be horribly uncomfortable. But to have a cool room with maybe bunk beds or whatever, everyone gets their own little space, and we're all in it together at a lot less price point.
Exactly, and then there's definitely a Selina home aspect to it as well. So we have a common kitchen, usually kitted out with really good cool kitchen appliances and a communal table, so you can be cooking with your friends, and then there'll be another group that's sort of using it at the same time, cooking their dinner, and you guys get to meet. So it's really those moments of interaction that really, sort of the special sauce in terms of making it all work.
So as the market research guru over here at Selina, what are some of the things that you've discovered recently that are really informing you on where the company should be going to and thinking about when it comes to either locations, trends, or whatever it might be?
So really, we're looking at diversity when it comes to any destination we're looking at. Yeah. There's a lot of markets that have great tourism numbers if you look at just ADR, RevPAR, and occupancy, but they don't speak to what we really want. We really, again, want that live, work, play. So we want a good, healthy mix of business travelers, people who are going for leisure, maybe even people who are going for various other reasons. So that's very important for us in terms of that. And then, again, at the local economy scale, we want to make sure that the businesses, the industries that a certain market supports is also varied. So giving a good mix of different type of people and really creating sort of that melting pot type of experience.
Where do you think this digital nomad thing is heading to?
I think it's going to be a very big movement globally. Once we start seeing people in Africa and Asia, growing up in terms of the Gen Z and things like that, there's going to be a huge shift there. I see it as a good trend because there's a lot of people who are going to be a little bit less location dependent. I think from a real estate standpoint, if you think about just home ownership, I think people will own homes. They might rent them out or do something a little bit different with it than they did traditionally, if we're thinking, like 2030, 2040. But yeah, people are going to be freelancing more. There's so many studies out there about even the U.S., majority of the population by 2030 is going to be freelancing rather than being employed by full-time work. People are just going to be having maybe more jobs than one. They might have 2-3 jobs, doing their own company, being an entrepreneur, having their own startup. A lot of this is going to happen, a lot more at that micro level.
Yeah, man. I just think about when I started this business, if I didn't have a family, how cool it would be to be able to travel to great places, share accommodations with cool people from all over the world, and have an inexpensive place to sleep, work, and eat.
Yeah, you can do everything you want, and the stress of having an apartment to keep in a city like New York or San Francisco where you're going to be paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for an apartment, you can spend that money and you can live anywhere you want. And and the idea of just being able to surf and then go work and then sort of still feel fulfilled from a professional standpoint and then get everything else that enriches your life.
Right. I mean, think about it this way. Last year alone, I traveled 125 days during the year in 2018, right? That's 4 full months on the road. Not consecutive, but that's 4 months of wasted apartment rent that I didn't need to spend. And for the 12 months of rent or mortgage, whatever I spent, I could have just utilized that to have that digital nomad experience and collect all these incredible experiences. Because not only that, because as we know, most younger people are focused much more on experience than owning stuff. People have things. They don't need stuff anymore.
Yeah. people don't want as many things. It's like really minimalist type of culture. I think, there's still an element of ownership that people are still interested in, but, this instant gratification thing is definitely a huge driving force of this. And then even if you start thinking about it from like an employer standpoint, a lot more employers are offering remote work in addition to paid vacation.
Right.
So they're allowing their employees, or even sometimes paying for their employees, to go work from somewhere else. Just go to a different scene, refresh your mind, think differently, come back and be energized. I think people value that a lot more now.
I think that makes a lot of sense, too, because one of the things that we do is we get caught up in this circle where we all have this group think. But if you could break out of it and talk to people from different cultures, different countries, different experiences and backgrounds, I think it gives you a much better, well-rounded look and will open up your ability to connect with a lot different varied groups of people by having the understanding of what they want and looking for.
Yeah, you just expand your realm, expand your mindset in terms of what's possible. It really changes. Me even joining Selina, going to Latin America as often as I am now is really opened my mind, and being able to sort of work remotely and sort of travel in between work trips. I think the flexibility really is something that helps me as well.
That's awesome. You speak Spanish?
I'm just getting there.
I'm terrible with languages. I try.
It's still on the car. Still on all the calls. They're like, "Oh, Ravi's on the call."
Yeah, all right.
Switch to English.
Slow it down. Yeah. I'm really bad. I'm terrible with Spanish, and I took that for a lot of years. I'm horrific with Hebrew, and I should have known that. I could read Hebrew, or I could when I was 13 years old. I just can't as much any longer. So I love that, because one of the things about being a global nomad is we are going to have to speak other languages. We're going to have to really get inculcated to understanding what other cultures are all about. And I think for humanity's sake, I think that's such a great thing. And I love that Selina is helping to encourage that sense of togetherness and, that global love.
Yeah. And we're actually working with, again, going back to the community, working with people in the community to actually teach different languages at our properties, using our co-working spaces as a classroom type setting here and there.
All right. Awesome. Fabulous. Anything else that you think that we missed here, Ravi?
No, I think that's
right.
I think that's pretty much it.
I think so too. Not bad, man. This has been really, really fascinating. So tell us a little bit about how we could find Selina for anybody who's interested in learning more about the organization or just wants to know where to stay somewhere that's cool.
Yeah, we're on most booking platforms. Selina.com is our website. You can follow us on Instagram. There's a lot of cool, surveys and things like that out there, as well as, one-time promotions. And you can learn a lot more about our festivals that we have, music events that we have. I think Instagram's a great place to really learn about us from that perspective. And we have a couple cool initiatives right now. We're launching the Selina road trip. It's our second time we did this. The first time we did it was going through Costa Rica and Panama. You'd go, I think, 2 weeks over 9 locations. Now we're going to do it throughout Mexico. So all the way from Mexico City, going down to Cancun and, Playa del Carmen and all these different properties. And, really going with a few people. You're going to be in a van just going across. It's going to be a great experience. A lot of digital nomads are applying for this right now. So, if you are a nomad or sort of have proclivity that way, I would really suggest you check it out.
Yeah.
And we're starting to roll out our loyalty program, really thinking about the ways that we can really benefit our end user. And even playing with ideas of how we can be more of an accommodating option for replacing somebody's rent altogether.
Right. Awesome. So, all right. So then I have to ask you this question before we wrap up. What do people seek from a hotel company to get their loyalty in a loyalty program?
I think loyalty right now is changing a lot.
Agreed.
Loyalty for the past, I think, 15 years, ever since like American Airlines, has all been about points. The points guy accruing points. We're moving a little bit different. We want to offer once-in-a-lifetime experiences that you can get by engaging with our brand and showing that you engage in our brand beyond just getting points. Of course, you can have early check-in, late check-out, all these types of perks that you have.
Right.
But we want to offer a retreat for some of our highly engaged brand members at a country level, at a global level, that they wouldn't even be able to buy a ticket to go. It's something that they do because they're loving our brand. And we want to gift them back something really unique.
Tapping into the one word we didn't talk about today, access, another thing that consumers want. The idea of getting engaged with things that others can't do, and they can come back with those bragging rights.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. Ravi, this has been a great conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for being here. And I want to thank everyone for listening to today's episode of the No Vacancy Podcast. Of course, you can subscribe to our newsletter by texting the word hotel to 66866. Find me online at Traveling Glenn. Like our No Vacancy pages on LinkedIn, Facebook, and follow us everywhere you got the internet. And I'll be back next week with another great interview. That is, unless I decide to drop off the face of the earth and move to the Amazon and stay in a Selina. See y'all guys later.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.